Welcome back, Fantasy Moto fans, to another episode of the RotoX Preview Show, the only place on YouTube that covers PulpMX Fantasy in the video format. My name is Donnie, and in this episode we are going to preview the 7th round of the 2020 Outdoor Motocross Series at WW Ranch. But before we get into that, as always, we're going to go ahead and recap Round 6 at Spring Creek. After that, I have Round 6 at Spring Creek. After that, as always, I have 5 riders that I want you to take a look at before making your picks this weekend, help on picking your FFLs, and what my team looks like as of the recording of this video. So first things first, let's go ahead and recap last week right over here. We had 3,097 championship players, down just a handful from the week before, and we also had 5,025 total people set their lineup. As far as the riders go, All-Stars had a terrible week this weekend. Only 6 of the 16 All-Stars scoring that perfect 50. And the double points eligible All-Stars had about an average week. 28 of 64 of them managed to do so. The perfect score on the weekend would have brought you 634 points. An additional 30 to that if you picked both FFLs right, which was actually very easy this week. Which would have brought you up to 664. Nobody did that, however. The median score of the weekend was 441 for the Championship League, meaning that if you scored 442 or more, you did better than half of the field. Notable zeros for the weekend were led by Henry Miller with 23.7% of people picked Henry Miller, despite him not racing. I even advise you to pick him last weekend, but as always, please check Twitter and Instagram before the gates drop so that you can know what happened during qualifying. Henry Miller qualified, I believe, 16th. He put up a great time in the first qualifying session, but the second he never once put a lap in. Before he got a hot lap, he had a major get off, and it looks like Henry's going to be out for the season. But I posted about it on Twitter, posted about it on Instagram, and it was also reflected on the cheat sheet. So make sure to check those things before you lock in your picks. A lot of these zeros this time were by riders that didn't even line up, including Ty Masterpool and Darian Sinai, who have two factory 250 riders, and Sinai's been out for more than 1 week. A grand total of 39.2% of total pick trend was used on riders that scored 0, which means about 1 in every 20 teams brought home a big fat 0 that probably could have been avoided. Looking at the top scores that people actually scored this weekend, everybody has the same profile picture. They all have the same haircut. That's really weird. But SR Fab 212 Wife took home the big championship prize this weekend with 629 points. Very super pumped took the lead back from C. Hellick in the Championship League. They've been battling back and forth for that top spot for weeks with 2,849. In the Roto X League, the highest scoring person was Fenson Brinson at 596, and Beef 90 takes over the Roto X Season League with 2,771 points. My team last week was actually really good. I needed this rebound. Everything was turning up amazing until Cody Schock did not line up for that second moto. At the end of the second 250 moto, I was actually top 20 before falling down into the 400s. I had Hunter Lawrence for a perfect 100. I had Justin Rodbell for 80, Jarrett Fry for 80, Flock for 84. Alex Martin killed it. I did miss a ton of points picking Brock Tickle. Obviously, he had that amazing get off in the second moto that I missed out on, as well as Christian Craig scoring 62, which was really great. And I nailed both FFLs as well with Shane O'Mac and AC9. A lot of people actually did that, as these were very predictable FFLs this time. I even advised you to pick both of these guys in the preview video last week. Let me know if you took my advice on the FFL, or if you decided to go another route, or if you just decided to not pick at all. Before we move on to the WW Ranch picks, I just wanted to go ahead and just do a little shameless self-promotion here. Don't forget that we do have a Twitter and an Instagram. Those are free to use. We have a free cheat sheet that goes up about an hour before the gate drops that shows you qualifying position, qualifying times, as well as handicap all in one screen, so you don't have to do all the research yourself. We also have a Patreon, which the link in the Patreon is down below. The Patreon, for as little as $5, you can get an extra podcast every week that goes over every single handicap that you need to know. It also features an enhanced cheat sheet the day of the race, and in this cheat sheet, it gives you previous finishes, average finishes, qualifying starts, literally everything that you could want to know. So be sure to check those out if you want more content like this. But all right, let's get to the picks that I have for you. The first pick I have is your 250 All-Star. If you didn't take him last week, you better take him this week. Jet Lawrence. Jet's been on the podium 2 motos in the last 2 weeks, which is amazing for the rookie. His average finish of 9.6 could scare you, but if you take out his 2 DNFs in the mud at Loretta Lynn 2, his average finish is actually 5.4. Almost every handicap in the 250 class actually went down after the last race, so it's getting tighter and tighter, but Jet at a 5 is my pick for you. Staying in the 250 class, a non-all-star that I have for you is Jerry Robin. I can't believe I'm recommending this. Of course, because I'm doing it, this will be the week that he lets everybody down. But Jerry at an 11 is a great value. He has not been the Jerry of old. I don't know if the constant heckling that people have given him or the jokes have gotten to him, or if he's just ready to take his program up to the next level. But Jerry at an 11 still has a ton of value, although it is starting to wane here. He has been in the top 21 in 75% of motos, and his average finish is actually 19.5, which is great. His best of 16th, if he could match that and give us maybe a 16-18, that would be a ton of points. He did miss the second moto at Loretta 2 in the mud, which if you throw that in, his average finish would be closer to 21, but given the circumstances of the wet and the rain for a true privateer, I'm not going to hold that one against him too much. Moving on to your 450 class, your all-star, I have another Honda rider, another Geico great. Give me Christian Craig. Christian at an 8 might seem a little risky because he does have a history of losing his footing on 2 wheels, but this season he has actually been great. He has been able to stay up onto, I don't know if it's riding on the 450, he has no pressure because Honda didn't really have a lot of expectations anyway. Across the season, Christian has only been in the top 9 50% of the time with a 9.3 average finish. But if we look at just his last 6 starts, his average finish is actually 7.3, and he's been inside that top 9 in all motos but one. In the one moto that he wasn't was 10th, which would still be a salvageable score. And with Brock Tickle actually out for this race, which we will cover a little bit later, that's even one more person that's not going to be competing with Christian for those top 10 spots. One rider that I want you to stay away from here, and this actually goes for an entire group of riders, is Freddie Noren at a 3. Here's the deal. Freddie is obviously a top 10 talent, but he's just really not showing it this year. He finally put together a great day with 2 good motos and 11.9 last weekend at Spring Creek. But this also goes for Savachi, Anstey, and I'm not just picking on the yellow guys. The biggest problem is that we're losing a lot of that mid-range talent right now. So I think the best value is going to be those guys that have an 8 handicap and up. I just don't see a lot of value of the guys that are in that 8 to 12 range of where you would expect them to finish every moto. But I don't think Freddie's going to be a bad pick. He's probably going to score a good amount of points. Because of how well he battled at WW last week and how much the Pulp guys have really talked him up, I think he's going to have a really high pick trend, and this might be a great time to zig when everybody's zagging, because let's be realistic, what's his absolute best case scenario? I don't see him fighting for top 5s. I don't see him fighting for maybe even top 7. I think that his absolute ceiling is maybe 65 points on the weekend, and that's just not enough for me for a guy that has such a low floor with that low handicap. And my final rider that I want you to look at, your high handicap hero of the week, is Ben LeMay. I've been on the Ben LeMay train pretty much all season and with mixed results, but again, with that removal of the middle ground guys, which we'll cover later, I think that's going to bump all of the guys a little bit higher up the scale, and I'm targeting those guys that are just around that 20 mark to get some nice mid-teen finishes. Ben LeMay has been in the top 22 in 2 out of 3 motos this year. His average finish of 21.4 is right around the same spot with a 16th finish best. In his last 6 motos, however, his average finish has gone down to 19.1. Before we get to the ins and outs, let's go ahead and cover the FFLs. Another great showing for Star Racing Yamaha as Shane McElrath pulled yet another one alongside RJ Hampshire. That gives Shane 4, which is, again, more than anybody else, including Ty Masterpole, who I believe is not lining up, but there has been no official announcement on that yet. My clear-cut favorite here is Shane. Ferrandis had 2, but those were what seems like ages ago. Hampshire and the Martin brothers also are fast guys. But if you're going to pick a 250 All-Star, got to be a guy on a star bike. And for me, right now, that guy is McElrath. Moving on to the 450 class, there's really only 2 options here as well. It's AC and Osborne, and right now I'm riding AC's hot hand all day. His last 4 motos, he's pretty much led the entire thing from start to finish, except for a tip over in 1 moto. AC's on fire right now, and he's the only guy that he can even reasonably catch Osborne. So again, I would pick between those 2, and my money right now is on AC with his consistent finishes as of late. Moving on to your ins and outs, the only major one that I have in the 250 class right now is Ty Masterpole. He appears to be out, but again, there has been no mention of that yet, so that could change by the time the gates drop. In the 450 class, however, we do have 3 new entries joining the fray for the season. We've got Kyle Chisholm, Chiz gonna Chiz. I already know he's gonna have a high pick trend. Justin Starling and Dustin Winter are all in for this race. On the flip side, we have 4 guys that are out. First things first, Brock Tickle will be missing this race after his get off last weekend. He was the lowest handicap non-all-star, so again, that's just everybody's going to bump up one position. John Short with Manluck Racing and Ryder Floyd are also out. Manluck is done for the year. They posted up on their Instagram, so they will not be showing up. Henry Miller, as talked about before, is out for the season, and as was broke on the Pulp podcast, the fantasy podcast, Rensland said that he will not be riding, so go ahead and write him out as well. I believe that the Pulp guys also said that Grant Harlan was not showing up, which is another guy that's competing for those spots. So with all those middle of the pack guys getting removed, make sure to take those high handicap guys. That's where all of your big scores are going to be coming this weekend. Let's take a look at my way too early team. I set this Thursday night. I've got Jet Lawrence as my all-star for reasons stated before. I also have Jerry Robin for the exact same reasons that we already talked about. I have Nick Gaines, Florida guy. This is where I think he's really going to shine here in the sand at an 11. And I have Curran Thurman at a 17. Curran's one that I'm a little unsure of. I really like him in Supercross, but I'm kind of basing this entire thing off of that 121st finish he had in the second moto last week. Moving on to the 450 class, unfortunately, I cannot take Christian Craig as my all-star because I had him last week. So I'm going to take Zach Osborne at a 2. I think that AC closing that points gap is really going to light a fire under him and really push him to get some better results than he has shown this last week. I have Ben LeMay for the reasons we talked about before. Tentatively right now I have Benny Bloss, but I really want to change that pick out. I do not want to take him, but I think he still has value at a 5. He's just who I put in before finding any qualifying results. And then I also have Jake Masterpool at a 13. He's been consistently right in those teams the last 2 weeks, and that's what the kind of guy that I'm looking for, especially with those other guys out. First to the finish line, I need to make up the points, so I will be taking both of them for the rest of the year. I got McElrath, I got AC, and those are going to be locked onto my team until further notice. If you liked the video, please be sure to hit the little thumbs up button. It only takes a second, and it's really, really helpful for content creators if you do that. If you're brand new, subscribe as well, and tick the notification bell if you want to be the first one to know. As we talked about last week, I will be moving soon, so between house searching and meeting with realtors, my schedule is getting really tight, so these videos might be coming out a little bit later on Friday, but I will do my best to get them out to you as early as I can, pending how fast the handicaps drop. Again, don't forget about the Patreon if you want even more fantasy information moving forward, and be sure to follow on Twitter and Instagram so that you can get the cheat sheets, ins and outs as the day unfolds, as well as race day coverage and a little bit of memes thrown in. As always, thank you guys so much for looking. My name is Donnie. Good luck this weekend. I'll see you guys on Twitter. Take care.